Hi there, welcome to VMS Music Lessons for Electric and Acoustic Guitar. Ordinarily, words like chord and string are somewhat synonymous, but in music that is certainly not the case. A chord, as far as music goes, are 3 or more specific notes played at the same time. For example, something like this, something like this, something like this. For our purposes, though, we're going to simplify that even further, even though it would not be technically correct, and say that a chord is any 2 or more notes played together. For example, something like this, something like this. What chords are about, how we're going to learn them and understand them is going to evolve as the lessons progress. For now, though, it's just important that we get you acquainted with the simplest way to learn chords and get you comfortable with 2 of the easier ones. But before we can move forward in this way, we have to get you familiar with some of the terminology. Since if you cannot read music or find notes on your fretboard and don't have some experience arranging your fingers on the fretboard, some technique involved, it's going to be hard for you to find the right notes and hence play any given chord. So there's 3 things that you have to get comfortable with. Those would be strings, frets, and finger number. As you likely already know, a string is simply one of the 6 wires stretched across your guitar. For now, we will be referring to them by number, with the thinnest one being the 1st string, all the way down to the thickest string being the 6th string. Fret might be an unfamiliar word, but it simply refers to these segments or boxes into which the neck is divided by these many metal bars aligned across the fretboard. So this area here would be the 1st fret, this area here would be the 2nd fret, the 3rd fret, and so forth. Finger counting starts with the index or pointer finger being 1, the middle finger being 2, the ring finger being 3, and the pinky being 4. For those of you used to counting with your thumb being number 1, for example from piano or something like that, you're just going to have to get used to calling your index or pointer finger number 1, since that's how we do it with the guitar. So, if I want you to play a certain note, say a B, all I need to tell you is to place your 2nd finger into the 2nd fret of the 5th string. It still might take you a moment to put all this together, but don't assume you should know all this automatically. A lot of your challenges with the guitar are going to stem from trying too much too soon. Ordinarily, trying to find which one is your 2nd finger is not a big deal, but when put in the context of a chord, it becomes surprisingly challenging. And when you go to a chord that has multiple notes, the issue is only compounded. So when you come to chords that are going to have multiple notes in them, take one note at a time. Find one note, what finger it's supposed to be, what fret it's supposed to be in, what string. Get comfortable with it, move forward to the next one, and pretty soon you have all the notes involved in a chord. Just take your time when it comes to chords. I'm not going to be teaching you chords by telling you where to go for every last note involved in the chord. Instead, we're going to make use of common illustrations like this that depict finger and note placement on the fretboard. Let's go over a couple of things to help you understand these illustrations, though. First, imagine the guitar in a vertical position like this. Then, block out the headstock, which is this area right up here, and all but the first 3 frets right here. As you can see, all that remains visible are the first 3 frets and the 6 strings. That is what these illustrations depict. A portion of the neck of the guitar, often 3 frets, but sometimes more, as it looks when resting upon a stand or hanging upon a wall. By placing a black circle over a given string and within a given fret, I can show you where to place a finger. In keeping with the example I gave earlier, this note is found on the 2nd fret of the 5th string. So, following this example, you should be pressing down with a finger on the 5th string inside the 2nd fret. Also, by placing a number beneath the string, I can tell you which finger to use, in this case your 2nd or middle finger. If I were to put a 0 beneath the string without a corresponding black circle, that would simply mean hit the string with your pick, but do not press a finger down anywhere along the string. In other words, just play an open note on that string. So now, after filling out the remaining notes, you see that there are 6 notes in this chord. 4 of them are open, the remaining notes are fretted, one of which we've already found. Pause the video for a moment and find out where that remaining note is. If you're doing the chord correctly, it should look like this. With your fingers in place, drag your pick across the strings, or strum as we call it, like this. And there you have your first chord, E minor. Here's another chord for you to learn. Notice in this chord, which we call the A minor chord, nothing is written for the 6th string. This simply means don't include the 6th string in your chord. This is going to be only a 5-string chord. Pause the video and see if you can figure out how to play this chord. If you're playing it correctly, it should look like this. And sound like this. This is all we're going to be doing in this lesson for chords. It might seem overly simple, but don't underestimate it. Your task right now is to know the names of the chords and where to place your fingers and what notes you're not supposed to include. What I mean by know the chords means be able to do all of that without having to reference any kind of material, be it look at some notes you've written down, go back and remind yourself in the video. Now, of course, if you can't remember, then absolutely go back and take a look. But you need to know how the chords are supposed to be played and what their names are without having to lean on any references. And to properly test this, you're going to need to give it some time. You can't just go right after the lesson and think that you know the chords because it's fresh in your memory. You need some time away. So come back tomorrow or later, practice something else, and come back and see if you remember the chords without having to remind yourself first with any kind of notes, or come back and look at the video. See if you just come right back to the guitar and know where the chords go and what their names are. If you can't, then just go through the process again until you do so. There are many places for you to go to learn chords. Just stick to what we've covered so far. Don't add to your base of chords just yet. A lot of beginners make the mistake of just piling on chords that they can't really do anything with. Just expanding sideways and not forwards. Your goal right now is just to know your chords. You might say quality, not quantity. Small note about quality. If you're finding that there's a note or two that you're trying to play that doesn't come out very well, don't distress and get frustrated over it. We'll work about how well your chords sound later on. Again, can't emphasize it enough. Your aim right now is just to know your chords. Don't worry about anything else. Don't expand and learn lots of chords or get the chords perfect. Just take these 2 chords, E minor and A minor, know them well enough without having to look back at anything, and only then move on to the next lesson.